We often spend so much time fighting fires. How much time do we spend actually fireproofing? Preventative wellbeing isn't about fixing crises. It's about creating environments where crises don't even need to happen. If you are caring for someone else, whether paid or unpaid, and no matter how many hours you do it, did you realise that you may be missing out on thousands of pounds of discounts for things that you may use every day? The Able to Care podcast is proud to be sponsored by the UK's #1 carers card. Started by two best friends who recognise that carers deserve better and are 100% committed to helping to change the lives of all carers and bringing them together as a strong community. Carers Card UK provides support, recognition and rewards. It offers reassurance by providing an ID card that helps access emergency information when needed, while also unlocking discounts, a wellbeing hub, a carers circle tool and a community through their app. All of this for less than the price of a box of chocolates a year. There are discounts on gym membership, days out, electrical goods, clothing and even glasses. Let others know you care while taking a little care of yourself with an ID card you can be proud of. Visit carerscarduk.co.uk/promo code/able to care today to order yours. Hello and welcome back to the Able to Care podcast, the podcast that helps caregivers, educators and professionals better understand those they support as well as themselves. And in this episode, we're unpacking one of the key pillars of the ABLE target system, the 6 C's of preventative wellbeing. The 6 C's include comfort, consistency, connection, choice, competency and challenge. 6 human needs that when met help people not just to cope, but to actually thrive. These principles that I developed are drawn on trauma-informed practice. Think models like the Kitwood Flower, Maslow's hierarchy, the PERMA model, as well as numerous trauma recovery theories. But the idea is that we're looking to promote these 6 C's across any service or any environment or any culture, because by putting these preventative measures in place, while people feeling comfortable, we know that their physiological needs are met. If they're feeling safe and secure, if they're feeling that the environment is stable and predictable. These are all things that reduce distress. And if we reduce distress, we're more likely to decrease behaviours that challenge or emotional dysregulation or distress behaviours. So preventative wellbeing isn't about reacting to crises. It's about creating the conditions that actually prevent crisis in the first place. And when we do manage to meet these 6 needs consistently, distress reduces. And the big thing is that as stress reduces, that allows people to learn. If our alarm bell's going off, if we're in a fight or flight state, then we can't learn, we can't develop trust, we can't develop connection. And this is a mistake that so many environments and so many services and so many individuals make, that they focus so much on the behavior rather than the well-being of the individual underneath that. And I've often used the analogy of kind of like fighting fires, that so many places spend more time just focusing on, well, make sure we've got plenty of fire extinguishers, and you do trying to put things in place to prevent the fire from occurring. And like anything though, a bit like Maslow's hierarchy, this is not something that's going to be fixed for a person. If we're thinking about the comfort being at the bottom or in the cycle, so comfort being first, then we might find that certain things in the environment change that comfort. Things change on a day-to-day basis, a week-to-week basis, a year-to-year basis. We might find this person develops connections, but then a staff member or somebody leaves or they lose somebody. And therefore, we've got to then go back to some consistency again, rebuilding that trust and rebuilding those connections again. So it's a constant ongoing cycle of trying to improve people's well-being. But whether it be care, education or family life, it's sometimes easy to focus on what's going wrong. But the idea of the 6 C's or the preventative aims principle is to focus on building what helps people to stay well, what works in the preventative. So let's go through these a little bit. So starting off, number 1 is comfort. And comfort is about safety, psychological, physical, and emotional well-being, essentially. And that can vary from person to person. What we're looking at is we want people to feel safe and secure within the space that they're in. We want to know that here you get fed, Here you get your needs met. Here you'll stay warm. All of the things that maybe we take for granted that we want to make sure in this environment, here you get fed. Here nobody hurts you. These are starting points of feeling comfortable. But it's also comfort varies from person to person. If I have a room full of different people and somebody goes, I'm hot, and I open the window, I guarantee somebody else will be getting their cardigan out because they feel cold. So when we're thinking about an environment, we want to make sure that it does allow people to have those individual needs. Some people like it dark, some people like it light, some people like it busy, some people like it sparse. So again, comfort is going to vary significantly. So ideally, we're creating spaces that feel comfortable. One of the other elements I refer to in this, though, is we have to recognize that we need to understand people's history and past sometimes to know what might be comfortable for them. Because I may have a preconceived idea of what I think is comfortable, but I can't then enforce that preconceived idea on somebody else, even if I think it's better. I may have to lead them to that idea to be able to see that difference in approach. So if you've got, let's say, a child in the service who's come from a very disorganized or environment, suddenly then being massively organized might feel quite overwhelming and intimidating and scary and confusing for them. Now, we may know that being organized improves productivity and well-being, a tidy environment, tidy brain. But for them, they've survived in a chaotic environment for how many years? They've never lived in this type of environment. So you might need to allow them to have some spaces that are chaotic that they can be in, but then we role model everywhere else organization. And then the benefits of organization can slowly be introduced into a person's world. So in practice, it doesn't just mean the environment, though. We're also looking about comfort as far as how people engage with them. Warm tones, no shouting, calm body language, clean, predictable spaces, dignity in approaches. So from a caregiver point of view or an educator's point of view, we're going to be mindful of our own presence. Make sure we're demonstrating calm, because if we are not calm, we're indirectly communicating a lack of safety, which straight away is not synonymous with comfort. So we can look at this from an environmental, but we also look at this from an approach point of view on a day-to-day basis. But comfort basically indicates you are safe here. Your body and mind can both relax. Another element of promoting safety, though, is a second level, which is consistency. So consistency, we're referring to here to predictability. And predictability isn't just about knowing what's coming, but it's predictability that's right for the person. And this also includes boundaries, that all people, as much as possible, are kind of interacting in a similar way. If you take it back to what a baby needs, when a baby is developing, it needs a consistency in approach. It's a case of when I cry, you come, and you're consistent with that. But then even if, let's say, the caregiver has to go to work, as long as whoever takes over, whoever's babysitting, acts in a similarly consistent way, then the distress is minimal. If, however, the other person is completely different in the way they approach, that can cause then agitation, confusion, anxiety, because I don't know what to expect today. So that's what we're looking at as far as boundaries are concerned. They're so important when we're understanding appropriate trauma kind of inclusive practice. It's not about just having no rules, no boundaries. As much as we think people don't like boundaries, they really do, because it allows them to feel safe. It allows them to go, hey, you're reliable. You're somebody who's predictable. I know where you're coming from. I know what your rules are. Now, trauma disrupts predictability, and it teaches that things can change suddenly and dangerously. So sometimes we have to overcompensate in trauma kind of inclusive environments, trauma-informed kind of principles, are being consistent more than we typically would while we're building trust. If I've got an individual who's come from some kind of traumatic or neglectful background, for instance, I may need to be really consistent with my meal times to let this person know, hey, food keeps coming. But if I go past outside of that normal consistency, if I then delay food, let's say even by half an hour, suddenly their brain, rationally or not, may be going, it's not coming, I'm in danger. And suddenly we're then losing that comfort because we've lost that consistency. Now, nowhere can be 100% consistent, but it is the quiet rhythm that tells someone, I can trust you to mean what you say. I can trust this environment in how it is. I trust the people around me. The next level after then the consistency is then connection. Now, rooted in numerous of the models, we're looking at attachment here. We are social creatures, and therefore having people we can connect to, people we can trust, is so important for then the next step of kind of growing that self-esteem and that autonomy and abilities. But the connection is really important. But I'm not going to be able to build connection unless I feel safe and comfortable. If I'm in fight or flight, we're not in friendships. So think about when you're really anxious about something, you struggle to engage with people. Exactly the same if it's a long-term, it's a chronic form of stress rather than acute. But connection helps us to regulate. The first thing that most people do after being a victim of a crime is contact somebody they're really connected with to help them feel safe, not the police. They want to connect with somebody first. So connection, few elements. One, it aids in regulation. It builds trust. It means this person feels safer in the environment because there's people that they're connected to and trust around them. It offers some level of stimulus related to social engagement, gives us a sense of purpose, gives us a sense of meaning. Social connection is something that really drives people's well-being. But it also allows us to better learn about the person. If we're not connected, if we're not understanding them, then how can we truly know what makes them tick, what makes them happy, what makes them sad, to adjust our level of support appropriately to what that person needs? So when we're looking at all behavior as a form of communication, but connection is the language that allows us to translate that to better understand the person and what they're trying to tell us. The next section is choice. Now, choice is something that we have to be mindful of, that too much choice can feel overwhelming. There is a threshold as far as choice fatigue can actually kick in. What's important here, and what we really talk about with choice, is autonomy and dignity. It's about it's not about compliance. It's about collaboration. It's giving person that autonomy in their own well-being. And when we're looking at principles around motivation, autonomy is absolutely massive as far as helping people to cope with change, helping people to build self-esteem, helping people to feel motivated to get up and do things in the day if they're the one that's had some control over doing it. And the instinct for many settings is when you have a person who seems to crave control, the instinct is to take it away from them. Now, if we're supporting somebody who starts to struggle with choice, when we're looking at things like mental capacity, we still want to make sure, following the mental capacity principles, we're providing as much choice as a person possibly can. A lack of capacity is not a full stop. It's a lack of capacity to make that particular decision, to make that particular choice. So anytime we are taking somebody's choice away from them, we should always be only doing it in the best interest, but also in the least restrictive way possible. So always promoting choice and autonomy as much as it's appropriate to do so, to allow that person to feel safe. Because when people feel they have choice, that helps them to feel like they have some power. And power over the environment, control over the environment, is obviously something that can make them feel safer and stronger. Now, the next step also leads on from this, which is then competency. Competency gives people the experience of mastery. I can do this. And it doesn't matter what that competency is. It doesn't matter whether we've got a person who's developing new skills, or it may be a person who's losing some of their old ones. But it's allowing them to see what they can still do rather than what they can't do, what they're learning to do rather than what they've maybe failed at. When we're looking at competency, this is absolutely vital for building self-esteem. And we know that self-esteem gives a higher level of resilience towards mental health. It allows us to give a better understanding. They're able to better cope with the world around them. They have a higher level of competency. And it also leads to lower level of distressed behaviors, because suddenly they're building that confidence in themselves that I can do this. I can manage this. I can cope with this. So if it's staff needing to scaffold success, creating opportunities for micro wins, for micro goals to be achieved in slow incremental steps, recognizing what a person can still do rather than what they can't. So a principle in our adaptive caregiver model course, where we look at supporting those living with dementia, where we focus on a principle like chaining, where we look at every activity has numerous links in the chain. And it may be that person can't do that one particular link. They're missing a particular link in that activity. But if we can just make a reasonable adjustment or help them or prompt them or do a hand in the hand for them to be able to do that one specific link, well, then suddenly they can still do the task. They just got stuck in that one little bit. And suddenly then they're learning or they're developing, I still got this. So that competency then turns how they may feel slightly helpless into hope. They may feel like a burden. They're suddenly going, not burden, you've got this. You're doing it yourself. The last stage is challenge. The principle here is about comfort zones feel lovely, but if we don't stretch our comfort zones, they start to shrink. It's about keeping the brain alive. It's about pushing that person out of their comfort zone. We need to do it in a way that still feels safe and they feel competent, but it's that stimulation allows growth. No plant grows if it isn't reaching for the sun. It's exactly the same principle when we're looking at challenge. We want to provide something that isn't threatening, but pushes them past to again, build competency, what they thought they could do, but also to allow them to experience the failure and the trying again, the doing it but not working out, the ability to problem solve, to try new hobbies and explore new things that they may never have thought of before, to meet new people, try new experiences. We're looking at something like mental health. This challenge that I'm coming across at the moment is if somebody is spending all of their time in the room disappearing into just doom scrolling and not engaging with other people, well, they're not giving themselves anything to live for. And challenge and doing something that's uncomfortable and overcoming that challenge is something that actually really positively aids well-being. But the instinct of many individuals experiencing challenges with mental health is their brains lying to them, going, you're in danger. And the best way of staying safe is to disappear so that nobody sees you and you don't see anybody else. And that actually is one of the worst things that your brain could do. It doesn't know any better. You have to tell it. You have to manage it. Or if you're supporting somebody else, you have to help them to try these steps, these challenges to grow and be the best them that they can be. So when we're looking at bringing all of this together, we've got these 6 different elements here as far as we've got comfort, we've got consistency, we've got connection, we've got choice, we've got competency, and we've got challenge. Those 6 elements all come together to provide or promote well-being. It's a compass that guides us to where we need to be to allow this person to thrive. It's not about fixing one area, it's about nurturing all 6 together and recognizing where a person is in that development. Are they comfortable enough to be able to then cope with consistency? Is everything consistent enough to be able to build connections? Have we got some connections to allow them to then feel safe enough to make choices? So all of these come together, not necessarily in one order, but we're combining it all. So in the ABLE target system, using those 6 C's, it helps organizations to identify gaps in well-being and strengthen culture and environment, not just compliance. I was just chatting with some colleagues. If only people really understood that some of the costs that they cut from promoting day-to-day well-being isn't saving them money, it's costing them thousands. Because that's what's causing much of the behavior that we find challenging. That's what's causing staff or caregivers to struggle to cope and having to require other services or not being able to look after a person getting moved. So when you are looking around your environment, when you're looking around your culture, whether you be a parent, an educator, it doesn't really matter. If you can focus on these 6 C's, competency is in there, achieving things academically, but I need to be achieving. If I'm failing all the time at everything you're giving me, my well-being is deteriorating and I'm just going to go to learn helplessness and suddenly you're not going to get the best outcome you possibly could. Whereas maybe take me down a level, maybe offer it in a way that I can understand, find those opportunities where I can actually succeed at something. Suddenly then my confidence starts to build. And it's amazing how building my confidence or self-esteem in one area can potentially allow me to thrive in areas of challenge where I didn't believe I could have before. So for leaders, try and build systems within your environment that reinforce safety, predictability, and growth for both staff and those you support. Preventative wellbeing isn't just a tick box. It's not a checklist. It's an entire culture. It's an entire process. So we should be promoting that in staff as well as for those that they support. Should be promoting care. Parents should be doing it for themselves, checking where you are in those 6 C's. Is there anything missing in your life? Are you finding opportunities for competency, for challenge? Are you feeling like you have autonomy and choice over what's happening? And where can you take some of those elements back in your life? So if this episode has helped you reflect on your setting or on yourself, then please share it with a colleague or another caregiver or parent or anybody you think might find this useful. You can find more about the ABLE target system and preventive wellbeing in my book, Targeting the Positive, or reach out to my company, ABLE Training. Remember, comfort builds safety, consistency builds trust, and connection builds everything else. Thanks for listening.